Good news here. 5-year-old Princess Dede Dakon, who hops on one leg, begins the process to acquire an artificial leg today. Two institutions, one in Nsawam and another in Aguna-Diakwa, are collaborating to design Princess's new right leg free of charge. They will also support her through school as well as assist her mother economically. This follows a JoyNews report on the little girl's plight. MFA Etiamwa Eli has more.
For 4 years, Princess has been hopping on one leg for all her mobility needs, including going to school. With intervention of the Brother Tarcisius Prosthetics and Orthotics Training College at Nsawam and the Salvation Army Community-Based Rehabilitation Center at Aguna-Diakwa, Princess Dede Dakon will, in the next 1 month, get back her right leg in its full length. The two institutions visited Princess and her mother days after JoyNews reported on the girl's birth defects. Principal of Brother Tarcisius Prosthetics and Orthotics Training College at Nsawam, Henry Labi, gives a brief of the preliminary stage.
The prosthesis or orthoprosthesis she's going to use is going to be part of her. It's just like a shoe. She'll be growing out of it. There's going to be constant repairs. So we are taking the initial cost of it, and it might cost around 6,000 Ghana cedis just for that, and we are giving it to her for free. On Monday, we do the assessment, and then we do the necessary measurement, which can take just a day. And when that is done, we would ask her to come back to the house, and we would do the process there and do all the modification and rectification we need to do, and get all the materials we need to do to prepare it.
Princess will later be detained at the final stage for a couple of weeks to enable her learn to use the new leg. The entire process is expected to last for 1 month. The Salvation Army Community-Based Rehabilitation Center has committed to sponsoring her education and economically supporting her mother. Paul Banfo is the Director of Medical, Social and Community Services.
So it's all about building the capacity of the mother to be able to take care of the daughter. But for now, we are coming in with educational support. We are also coming to look at the mothers, do some form of assessment, get to know really what she's doing now, what other things can she do to put her in a better position where any other mother will want to be able to cater for herself and her children. Princess'
mother, Regina Dakon, was lost for words. Her neighbor, Bawa Muhammad, who alerted JoyNews about Princess' challenge, expressed gratitude to the two institutions and JoyNews for coming to the aid of daughter and mother.
And I want to thank you very much for coming to the aid of this girl. And I know in future she will also remember you. Thank you very much.
Among other donors were Crystal Mining Consult, which donated a check for 5,000 cedis, and 5-year-old Delaidem also gave up all his savings of 100 Ghana cedis towards Princess's leg. After securing her new leg, Princess will report for periodic maintenance and reviews. The artificial leg will be changed every 5 years as she grows. MFA Etiamwa Eli for JoyNews, Nima.
Some very good news there for little Princess. Ain't that a story you'd love to see on every Monday? A research conducted by scientists at the University of Development Studies has found several food vendors in the Tamale metropolis sell food contaminated with salmonella. The research also found out that most of the fufu pounding machines in the metropolis are contaminated with the same bacteria. It is estimated that 153 million are infected yearly by salmonella, with 57,000 deaths. The Department of the Biotechnology of the Faculty of Agriculture of the UDS has been conducting a research in Tamale on the salmonella in gizzards following a report of the importation of contaminated gizzard into the country from Brazil. Dr. Courage Saba is a senior lecturer at the Biotechnology Department. He led the research.
The Department of Biotechnology for the past 7 years has been working on the contamination of salmonella in foods in the Tamale metropolis. The research, which was conducted last year on various food samples, had between 80 and 100 street food vendors. Dr. Saba said people are being infected with salmonella without knowing.
And we have worked on a number of food samples, specifically street foods, ready-to-eat food. And for now, we found salmonella in a number of them. Fufu that is sold by the roadside, we have gotten salmonella from some of them. We went ahead to sample the fufu making machines that we have now. We got salmonella from them, and we also realized that because they don't clean them very well. We got salmonella from samples we took from pepper sauce that they used to serve with kenke, and I must tell you that we found salmonella in them as well. Apart from that, we also sampled frozen chicken some time ago, and we had some salmonella in them as well. People are being infected with this salmonella, but they may not know. They may attribute it to other sources, since they are not aware of the food that they are, or they are not aware of how the food they are eating is prepared.
He said the department has also done a research on gizzard following the recent reports of contaminated gizzards imported to Ghana.
We visited almost all the cold stores, and precisely 39 of them, and we were able to get gizzard from 20 of them. Out of the 20, we found out that 13 of them were from Brazilian origin. 7 were from Turkey and 1 from the UK. So we took those samples, brought them to the microbiology lab here, conducted analysis of those samples microbiologically, and basically we found out that the samples we took were all negative for the salmonella.
Dr. Saba called for a collaboration between the university and other stakeholders for more research.
We are open for collaboration, and this research we have carried out, I must say, normally from our meager resources, at times from our salaries. So if I have the means, if I have sponsorship to carry out this periodically, at least in Tamale, I'll be glad to do that.
He called on people to ensure that food they buy from the streets are hot.
My advice generally is to consume food very hot. When you buy food that is not hot, you can go on to heat it before you take them, or also with the meat samples. What you need to do is to first boil them directly when you get home. Put water on fire and boil them directly before you start cutting them.
JoyNews sample views of some residents on the contamination of foods with salmonella.
I think as a research institution, I want to propose that we should have courses with food audit and traceability, so that these people will serve as experts. And also we should have quality assurance scheme. So once this food product come into the public, we have people who will check them, and once they pass that, it is of good quality, because we trust the quality assurance scheme. I think everything will be fine.
I was quite disappointed because I was thinking the regulatory bodies should have upped their game in order to track this. So when I heard already some containers have been released to the community, I was quite disappointed.
Martina Bugri filed that report. Now, here it sounds like a very scary case. Let's get on the phone line now. I have Dr. Courage Saba from the Department of Biotechnology, University of Development Studies. They conducted this research. Sir, thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
And thank you to...
Right. I just want to find out... Right. Sorry. I just want to find out quickly, was this research motivated by the recent news reports about the entrance of bacteria-infested gizzard?
Yes. The gizzard samples were taken because of the recent news of the 4 containers imported into the country. But the rest of the research we did have been going on for about 6 to 7 years now. Wow.
So I just want to be sure that this Salmonella we're talking about is not a different bacteria. I mean, it's not different from what was brought in through Brazil. Is this bacteria that's familiar to our environment here in Ghana?
Yeah. So I was looking at the certificate that was brought from Brazil. They indicated that it was Salmonella enterica enteritidis that was suspected in the sample. And what we did, the analysis we did, is to look for such type of Salmonella. I must also say that we have 2 general species of Salmonella, which is Salmonella enterica and Salmonella bongori species. Salmonella enterica species, they are dominant, and we have almost about 2,500 serotypes of them. Then Salmonella bongori, they are in the minority. They don't generally cause disease per se, but some have been implicated in certain foodborne outbreaks to human beings.
Okay, and this is exactly where I wanted us to come to, because I want us to assess the extent to which this bacteria is life-threatening. And the last time I spoke to the FDA, one of the questions that I asked them was, what really will make you know that you've been infected by something like this? And I was told that there are symptoms such as vomiting, weakness. Educate us a bit on the symptoms. Should you consume something that's infected?
Generally, symptoms from the acquisition of Salmonella are normally likened to the general diseases that we have here, especially malaria. So people tend to think that it's malaria, even though it might be Salmonella. So the general symptom is that when you consume food that is infected with Salmonella, within 6 to 72 hours, you may, that is the incubation period, you are likely to have certain symptoms if your immune system is not very strong. The symptoms are fever, weakness. You have weakness. You can cough. There will be abdominal pains or cramps. You have diarrhea. In certain cases, people have constipation. And this may last for 4 to 7 days. If you have your immune system okay, you should be able to overcome the disease with 4 to 7 days. But those who are normally at risk are those we call immunocompromised people. The immunocompromised group are children, the aged, pregnant women, and also those who are already sick.
Right. So it's possible that we recorded deaths from this particular bacteria. But
of course.
But there's no research to link it directly to it, is it?
Let me give you the estimated figures we have annually from the world. In Ghana, because our system is not well mature to record those infections, we don't know how big the situation is.
Right.
But annually, it's estimated that this salmonella causes about 153 million infections.
Worldwide?
Yes, 153 million. And out of these, 57,000 people are estimated to die globally out of this infection.
Okay. Let's look at what we can do in terms of preventing deaths from this. You've indicated already that this is obviously a life-threatening bacteria. This is obviously a public health threat. But is there any collaboration going on to reduce the extent of threat that salmonella poses to public health? Are you working on any such collaborations with public health institutions?
Actually, no. What we just do is to make sure we bring the results.
Okay.
We do risk analysis. So we do initial sampling of those food samples. Then we come out with the initial results. And those who are concerned can go ahead to collaborate with us, because actually, even our research is not sponsored.
Right.
We do everything on our own.
On your own. I understand that you've given some of your recommendations to the Food and Drugs Authority. What sort of response did you get?
Yeah, I gave a proposal to Food and Drugs Authority following from the results we got from street food that we have in the Tamale metropolis about a collaboration where we will sample restaurants and be classifying them based on their level of cleanliness, and also based on the presence of these organisms in them. Last year, I gave them the proposal, but I've not heard from them yet. I'm still waiting. Maybe they are in the process of getting back to me, but since last year, I gave them such a proposal, but I've not heard from them.
Hopefully, as we go along with this discussion, we'll raise it with the Food and Drugs Authority and find out what they say about it. They themselves have told us. I mean, when I spoke to their communication director, he indicated to us that they were going out to find out where these packs of gizzard were sold, so they can conduct their own research there. So hopefully we'll get back to that. Dr. Saba, thank you so much for the great work that you're doing. So essentially, they did a research from the University of Development Studies. They did a research that shows that there are significant amounts of salmonella, which is a bacteria, in food that is sold on the streets of Tamale, in Tamale metropolis, because that's where they conducted the research. Chances are we could be doing same here in the city and across the country. But they said they're looking forward to hearing from the FDA regarding a proposal they sent to them so they can work together on this. Let's delve deeper into public health, focusing on medical negligence or allegations of such. Relatives of a patient who died after surgery at the 37 Military Hospital are accusing the facility of medical negligence because they also cite the doctor who conducted the surgery of extortion and cooking up receipt. Solomon Asari Kuma was expected to undergo a surgery to correct a brain tumor detected in his head. He died 3 weeks after the surgery, which was earlier aborted on 2 different occasions because of absence of equipment. Emmanuel Asari Kuma is his brother. He filed a complaint at the hospital. Well, let's get on Skype to talk to Emmanuel to find out what exactly happened. Hello, Emmanuel.
Hello.
Emmanuel, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I listened to you earlier on our morning show, and I appreciate that. It's a very difficult moment for you. It hurts me that I'll have to take you through it again because our audience on TV also could be different from our audience on radio. If you crave my indulgence, kindly tell us what happened.
Thank you very much. So pretty much, my brother was in a subconscious where we took him to see a hospital in Sakumono. And the hospital gave and found out that he had a brain tumor. So normal protocol have to refer to one of the referral hospitals in Rich. So they did refer to 7 military. So when we got to 37 military hospital, once the processes went, it was my sister and her husband to my brother. So they go to the hospital, and since I was a neurological case, I was admitted to the neuro ward. And my sister had an engagement with a neurosurgeon by name Kenalapia. So the neurosurgeon spoke to my sister and said this was an emergency situation and would need to conduct an emergency surgery as soon as possible. And he did request 40,000 Ghana cedis for the surgery. And if 25,000 cedis was given, he could go ahead and do the surgery. After the surgery, we pay the rest of the amount. It was a Friday. So hurriedly, family put their together, and the Sunday, that was our last week in August. I believe it was August 25th. The money was given to Kendall. On the Monday that the surgery was didn't happen, he did postpone it to the weekend. He did mention that I was to handle the surgery. We cannot give the family some kind of assurance. Emergency, it didn't happen. The first week, the surgery didn't happen. He postponed it again. The next time he postponed, he was sick. All throughout this process, there was a lot of anxiety because he did mention that it was an emergency situation, and now it's already been close to 2 weeks into this because he proposed that Friday, that it's a Monday. And at one time, he took my brother to the surgical theater and administered oxygen, anesthesia, everything as if he was going to do the surgery. Then after a couple of hours, he brought him back. He said the equipment were not working, and he would have to purchase mentioned a drill from South Africa. Now, when it got to the time that we expected that he goes ahead and do the surgery, he said he didn't have surgical glue. So we did purchase surgical glue from the United States. Got a family friend, who's also my father's mate at John. He sent them the surgical glue to my sister picked this up at the airport at 7, gave it to the doctor. Now, my brother was sent to the theater again. This time around, his head was cut open. It was probably 6-7 hours of surgery. I mean, it was a full surgery, and he said while he was using it, the drill stopped working. So he had to suture his head. And that was when, I couldn't handle it. He sutured his head back. And throughout that process, when he went back to the ward, my sister noticed his leg swelling. So he did, alert the nurses' attention to this, only to find out that he had DVT, thrombosis. So we had to go to Kolebu, get a procedure done to be able to block this, what should we call it? This blood clot from traveling to be able to kill him. Now we got a procedure to put down $5,500. CDF equivalent we paid. We came back to 37 a week after the surgery was done, and you can tell with the whole process delaying the whole process, taking to the surgical theater, cutting his head open, not performing the surgery, bringing him back. And you're talking about brain surgery here. I mean, the brain is such a complicated organ that once you go in and you touch the brain, without doing nothing, you already created a whole lot of complications. So now after the surgery, brother admitted at the ICU ward. I mean, he barely respond. I mean, at the time he couldn't even open his eye. His mouth was so swollen, and The worst part of the fact, we're not even told that the CT scan machine was working, and after the surgery, we're going to go outside the hospital to get the CT scan there. So now they told us to go outside the hospital for a CT scan. My brother is on life support. And even with the doctors, it was them because they didn't even know how to assemble all the guys. We called Ingum ambulance. They came, they stayed over 1 hour before they finally were able to get him on the ambulance, take him to Sunshine lab at airport. And we did this twice. And it was just, I mean, moving the patient onto the CT scan, bringing him, putting him back, and the drive to the facility. I'm telling you, I mean, I even have videos of the ambulance going and cars not even allowing us to go. This is a critically ill patient. Finally, my brother had a cars a trachea tube, they call it intubation, through his neck, so it would allow him to have enough oxygen because the tubes were initially connected through his mouth. It was really difficult for him to breathe. There were a lot of swellings. When they take it and place the tube, they will allow the swelling in his and all kind of go down. And when they performed this procedure, there was one day, apparently, something happened, and they had to take this tube out, suction him, and put it back. And what they did, it went through his skin. So instead of the ventilator, the oxygen going through his windpipe, he actually went through his skin, and it blew him up. It blew him up like a balloon. And the day before, and the day when that thing happened, I have pictures of that. When you see how my brother's face was swollen, I'm telling you. And the sad part is when I went in the morning, the head of ICU came. My brother died of cardiac arrest. Even the cause of death hasn't been established. And the surgeon did confirm that there was subcutaneous emphysema, but he didn't go to certain about. Prior to that, Dr. Kutin, he was in charge of he was over the ice.
Mr. Saikuba, if you can hear me.
Give me some brief.
Can you hear me?
That's why.
I'm not having a very smooth line, but if I hear the story that you're telling us so far, so your brother was referred to the 37 military hospital. There is where you dealt with one Colonel Apia, doctor, who's a medical doctor there, who took care of your brother. He asked for 40,000 plus. That's at 40,800 cedis. And he said that if you were able to raise 25,000 cedis, you'll be able to start the process for you, which you did. Your brother was then. If I got you right, there was another referral to Kolebu Teaching Hospital before you came back to 37, and then there was the brain surgery that went on, and then your brother's head was split open, but the surgery could not go on because there were problems with the equipment that had to be used. So at this point, his head is split up. They can't continue the process because they realize there's a problem with the equipment, and then they put his head back together, brought him out of the surgery room. Is this what happened?
Yes.
Right. I'm really sorry about you having to relive this experience. And then they had to do a CT scan. And with this CT scan, he had to be moved from the hospital to another facility, which is not close. And so here is someone who is on life support. Yeah. So here is somebody who is on life support who has to be, I don't know, carried, moved out of the hospital to do a scan. You did this scan, you brought him back, and then they had to put oxygen on him. And this oxygen that they put on him went the wrong way, because then instead of the oxygen going through his windpipe, it goes then into his body.
That is correct.
Wow. And throughout this process, were the doctors explaining anything to you? Were you being told anything for you to understand the process step by step? What was happening?
So when my brother passed away, it was that he had already been sent to the morgue. We went to the morgue and gave us excuses. They didn't allow us to see the body till the next day. And we were trying to get, we couldn't find him. So we went to the hallway. So right in the hallway, he didn't even sit us down and help, our place to even talk. Right in the hallway, where he was explaining everything to us.
At this point, you are alleging the medical negligence. Do you intend to take this matter up with the Ghana Medical and Dental Council?
I want to go all the way out because I don't want anyone to experience this.
Because we're getting some responses as well from the hospital, and they have said that this process, I mean, usually these processes, you'll have signed something, you know, that show, because it's a surgery and it's more like a 50-50 thing. The expectation is that it could go right, it could go wrong somehow. And so you've signed on to these things. They said that they've also explained things to you as to how it happened. Regarding the money that was paid to this Dr. Kenner, also they've also explained that they work with, they sort of outsource some of the services, and so they work with third-party companies. So these monies sometimes go through them. It's understandable. What's your reaction to that?
I tell you that people who have experienced here were used to the fact that it would take money to do the surgery. We were told this from staff, we were told this from other people, already in the situation because we're already vulnerable from day one. We didn't know what to expect. And while going through the process, realizing that he already cut my hair, there was pretty much no way back. And even with the monies, right after the surgery, even before the surgery, he had already started calling my sister the balance. So right after the surgery, you know, a day or two, and my sister wanted to pay him the rest of it. Now, even asking for receipts was causing me, go come. And finally, he brought a receipt from some institution. I don't have that in my mind. And I think the hospital is trying to link that to the hospital saying, you know, you don't pay money to the neurosurgeon. And later, you pay any money to him. So whatever the hospital is, I think when we dig a little deep, find it.
And that's exactly what you intend to do. So for those who are watching, you probably may be missing out on some of the words he's saying. He says that he intends to go all the way out. He intends to, I asked if he wants to file this, take this up with the Medical and Dental Council, because the individual practitioners are registered to this organization. He says he intends to go all the way out. And he also says that as they delve deeper, we'll get some more answers. Mr. Asare Kumar, I'd like to say condolences to you. So sorry for losing your brother, and we wish you all the very best. We'll certainly be following up on this story as and when you take it any further, so we can share it with the rest of the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Emmanuel Asare Kumar is a man who lost his brother. He's alleging medical negligence on the part of the 37 Military Hospital. And Joseph Opoku Gakpo is here in the studio with me. He's been checking, you know, this hospital and, you know, from all that, for the hierarchy of people who run this hospital, and he's got some information from our sources. Joseph, let's begin with what the hospital's general response to this is.
They say as far as they are concerned, this matter, the gentleman was brought in August last year. He died in October. As far as the hospital is concerned, they explained issues to the family, and there is no active, continuous investigation happening. Okay. When the issue was actually brought to their attention, the commander demanded written responses and had verbal interrogation of the officer in question, Dr. Kanela Pia. And as far as the hospital is concerned, they tried to explain, they did explain issues to the family, and for them it's a closed case. It's a closed case. Did they also speak about the money? Because this Mr. Asare alleges that he paid personally to this doctor. Is that appropriate procedure? They say that that is something which happens. In fact, to quote our source at the hospital who responded to this, he says maybe the doctor actually acted out of extra care by seeking to intervene and taking the money and going to get the medicine. But they say the medicine was gotten from a pharmacy shop that the hospital is familiar with, Victoria Pharmacy, and that's far. The hospital officials claim that they've double-checked the receipts that he brought back to the family, and they are genuine. Regarding what the hospital, the equipment being used, because you split someone's head open and then you don't carry out the surgery in full, and then you bring the person out, that's certainly like causing the death. They say that they are ill-equipped. They had just one of those available equipment. They didn't have enough of it. And so then the process is started. And again, to quote the source, that they say equipment do break down. And so they see this as a normal scenario of things happening and equipment breaking down because it's electronic. And so they can't be faulted at the level of the hospital for how come it happened so.
Regarding the CT scan, they had to move someone who's on life support out of the hospital outside to go and do a CT scan. What does the hospital say?
Again, now they say that they've been able to install a new CT scan. They brought it in us at the end of last year. Since January, it's been working. But the explanation they give is because they are ill-equipped, they've signed memorandum of understanding with some of the medical facilities in the enclave so that then when they can't undertake a procedure, then they take it up. And this also happened in this case. The hospital is insisting they provided the best possible care because when he was being sent out, he went out with an anesthetic petting and a medical doctor in addition. So they virtually didn't have a choice because their equipment was broken down. And they can only rely on central government to fix that. The hospital's own money wouldn't be enough. The sad part being that the equipment we gathered broke down because the hospital should have signed a maintenance agreement after it was commissioned back in 2008, which they didn't. So they used it for more than 4 years without maintaining it, and then eventually broke down beyond repair.
That's really sad. Now a human life has been lost. But what's the hospital's suggestion as well as far as that? Because the family insists that the gentleman could have lived if he got proper care. And in their view, proper care includes not moving the person who's on life support out for CT scan. It also includes having a surgery and not splitting up the head open and closing it back together and bringing the person out of surgery.
The hospital disagrees. The 37 Military Hospital, our sources, they make the point that the gentleman was brought in brain dead, his pupil was popping out, and he was virtually almost in coma. And so they're actually taking credit for how come they revived and helped him live between August and October last year, and are not buying into the idea that he could have lived if he was given any better care.
It's really, really sad. But finally, does the hospital have any idea on generally the way forward? Because this morning on the Super Morning Show, we had people calling in with their own experiences, people that are not really different from what this gentleman is narrating.
They say they're doing customer care training for their staff. They are taking the necessary steps to ensure that they treat patients better. They're asking for more resources in order to get equipment so that then they don't have this situation unfolding. But then it looks like they are very clear in their minds that their staff did what they needed to do in order to save the patient's life, and things just went bad.
Joseph, thank you for that update. Joseph Opoku Gakpo has been checking with our sources at the 37 Military Hospital and other allied agencies trying to get us information on these allegations that are being brought against the 37 Military Hospital. As to head the gentleman, this is not the last of it yet. They intend to take it all the way up as far as it can go, starting perhaps with the Ghana Medical and Dental Council. We'll be getting more and more of that as we go along, and we'll brief you when we do. Joseph, thank you once again, and may his soul rest in peace. And hopefully you and I won't have to suffer this situation. As the 37 Military Hospital says, it is working on some of the concerns that have been raised. This afternoon, national anger at how top politicians and many considered to be affluent won scholarships from the GET Fund to attend schools abroad. The Auditor General believes this is an aberration of the law, as he argues, per the mandate of GET Fund, funding must be for education within the boundaries of Ghana. But majority of the beneficiaries captured in the Auditor General's report took the scholarship for studies abroad. Mr. Opoku Prempeh, Deputy Majority Leader Joa Safo, and Executive Secretary of the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, Prince Sama, are among the politicians, academicians, members of parliament, and media personnel included in a list of beneficiaries posted. The revelation has spawned several reactions. We'll hear from the minister shortly. I'm talking about the Minister for Education. But first, here are details of their performance audit report conducted between July 2017 and March 2019, covering the period of 2012 to 2018.
According to GET Fund's annual report from 2012 to 2018, the Secretariat spent in excess of 400 million cedis on scholarships on 3,112 beneficiaries, out of which 2,217 persons were unlawfully granted scholarships to study abroad. The Auditor General's report found that the GET Fund Secretariat breached the law by administering the foreign scholarships, which is the mandate of the Scholarship Secretariat. Some of the beneficiaries, according to the report, include a person bearing the name of the Education Minister, Matthew Opoku Prempeh, who studied at Harvard University for an international security course valued at $11,200. Another person who bears a name similar to Deputy Majority Leader Sarah Adjwasafo is also listed as having attended a conference at Harvard and benefited from a $12,000 allowance. The report highlights the huge amount of money spent on foreign scholarships could have paid for many more Ghanaians to gain tertiary level education as intended by the Act. It points out that gifted but needy students ended up borrowing from the Students' Loan Scheme or elsewhere, while officials who are highly placed in society took the scholarships not even for the awards, but for themselves. A former administrator of the Secretariat responded to the Auditor General's claim, saying, quote, his quest to obtain value for money led him to take the interests of the country into consideration in all decisions made. The Auditor General concludes by saying it intends to serve the GET Fund with a notice of intention to disallow items of expenditure and may proceed to surcharge.
That was a News Desk report. Now, officials of the Education Ministry and many others defending the award of these scholarships to the politicians make reference to the GET Fund Act. Well, the Education Ministry says it will take a second look at the Auditor General's report and re-examine the mode of administration of these scholarships to ensure it is in consonance with what the law states going forward. So what reforms are required to ensure that the scholarships are going to those really in need and those for the right purpose? First though, what did Audit Service find to help us improve? Joining us live is Alberta Owo. She's a principal auditor with the Ghana Audit Service. I also thank you very much, ma'am, for joining us. We'll also go over to Parliament, where we have the Member of Parliament for Notong Okujeto-Ablakwa, who's also former Deputy Education Minister. Sir, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me. Okay,
I think that we've just lost the Audit Service representative, so I'll just go straight ahead and start with you, Mr. Okujeto-Ablakwa. Your reaction, initial reaction.
An embarrassing audit report, unconscionable, a sad day for public office. It's not the kind of audit report that gives public office a good name. And we have to be honest about that, especially on this day, the 24th of February, where we commemorate Ghana's Day of Shame, the overthrow of a selfless, sacrificial leader, the Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Osajifo Kwame Nkrumah taught us to be selfless, to be sacrificial. Up to now, not a single property has been linked to Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, despite the enormous power and how long he stayed in power. Right. He dedicated his entire life to transforming our country. So on a day like this, we should be really ashamed about this report. Now, if you look at the GET Fund Act, the Ghana Education Trust Fund Act 2000, Act 581, Section 22B is very clear as to how scholarships should be administered. There are 3 criteria. 1, the beneficiaries ought to be gifted and needy. 2, the beneficiaries must be attending school in Ghana, either second cycle or tertiary institutions in Ghana. And then the 3rd criteria, which must be emphasized, is that the scholarships ought to be administered by the Scholarship Secretariat and not GET Fund. So if you look at Section 2B of Act 581, all of the provisions have been breached. I have heard the Communications Director at the Ministry of Education seek to justify the scholarships that have been awarded under Section 22E.
Just a quick one, Mr. Okujeto-Ablakwa, if I'll come in here.
Section 22E, which gives discretion to GET Fund. It is important.
I just wanted to come in here because...
If I can conclude, it is important to emphasize that Section 22E, so Section 22E, which there's an attempt to justify what has happened, If you read section 22E carefully, it says that though the GET fund can carry out other programs in the interest of education generally in Ghana, it requires ministerial approval and the approval of the GET fund board. I served at the Ministry of Education for 4 years. There was no ministerial approval for the scholarships that I'm seeing, the names that have been published. And so it is important for us to commend the Auditor General for what they have done. I will support surcharging all of those public officials, MPs, ministers of state who continue to benefit even now as we speak, because remember that the audit report is from 2012 to 2018. They ought to be surcharged and they must refund those monies to the state.
Okay,
it's totally unconscionable. It's morally reprehensible. It cannot be justified whatsoever.
So I come back to you. I wanted to come in there because you had mentioned specifically the law and what it says, and then because there was a response from, well, a document that's purported to be coming from the GET fund. So I wanted to read that to you. It says concerning the part of the law you have quoted, which said the education should be outside of Ghana, that the attention of, it says the attention of the GET fund has been drawn to some media reportage, and it goes on and on. It mentions the name. Then it says, we wish to categorically state that the award of scholarship by GET fund under the GET fund Act 2000, Act 581, is not limited to needy but brilliant students. It says that the fund may, per its mandate, also provide support to such other educational activities and programs to serve strategic national interests. The above having been said, it is worthy of note that the aforementioned persons have not been awarded scholarships by the fund under the current administration. So this is a response sort of from the Ghana Education Trust Fund. Essentially what it's saying is that two things from what you've said. The first one being that the GET fund can choose to support educational program or programs or people who are studying not just within Ghana but also outside Ghana. It also goes on to say that these persons that you've mentioned, none of them had their scholarship given in this or under this regime. It probably was the time when you were deputy and minister. Your response?
There are many factual inaccuracies with this GET fund statement. First of all, Section 22E of Act 581, the statement refuses to quote the provision in full. Let's read the provision in full. It stipulates to provide monies to support such other educational activities and programs for the promotion of education as the minister in consultation with the board may determine. If you go to the interpretation section of this act, the minister is the Minister of Education. I have checked. I was at the ministry. I was in charge of tertiary education. At no point did these requests come to us for approval. So the Minister of Education ought to have approved this. These approvals have not been granted. The second point that has to be made, and which is the other factual inaccuracy, is the claim that nobody under the current administration has received scholarships in terms of high-ranking public officials. The Honorable Adjoa Safo's scholarship is under this administration. You have the Honorable Mavis, the Honorable Mavis in Kansa Bwedu. Her scholarship was under this administration. You take the Honorable Minister responsible for Employment and Labor Relations. It was under this administration. But you see, I don't want us to begin to engage in extreme partisanship and then the principles are lost. The fundamental principle, which I have been espousing right from the beginning of this discussion, is that at no point should members of parliament qualify for this scholarship, whether home or abroad. It's unconscionable, it's unacceptable. Ministers of state. Look, these are scholarships for the poor masses. We should be working to create more opportunities because these scholarships are woefully inadequate. Look, I served at the Ministry of Education. I can tell you that every year, less than 10% of those who apply for these scholarships get it. Less than 10% because the resources are not adequate. And there's so many deserving, gifted, and needy students who can't get it because, as you notice from the audit report, even there were budget overruns by 200%, 300%. It tells you that the allocations were not enough. So we should not encourage a situation where people in high office, who should rather create more opportunities for the poor, for the masses, rather come and scramble with them. I would have thought that members of parliament would rather be helping, leading the way so that their constituents, their poor folks they represent in parliament will get these opportunities and not be taking it themselves. So the principle must be established that, look, all members of parliament, ministers of state, you must stay away. And those who have gone to benefit should be thinking about refunding those fees and those living expenses. It's totally wrong. It's unethical. It's morally reprehensible.
You indicated
even if they want to argue that there is no breach of the law, does it sit well with them?
You indicated earlier, Mr. Kujata Blakwa, that there was no such approval given by the minister when you were deputy minister concerning these names, these notable names that have come up. How is that possible that they will still get the scholarship if there was no approval?
What it does mean is that the GET Fund decided to grant final approval, and the GET Fund virtually did everything on their own, and that's why I take issue with how these whole scholarships were granted. In the first place, that should not have really been the mainstay of GET Fund. A lot of the scholarships that they did, I agree with the Auditor General, Section 22B of the law is very clear. The Scholarship Secretary should have been administering that. So it's clear that the GET Fund administration will have some questions to answer. I mean, in this country, we should learn to give people who have been given public office to hold the opportunity to answer for their stewardship directly. Let it not be said that the party or ministers are required to provide answers for people who acted as administrators or chief executives for the GET Fund. I think that all those who worked at GET Fund from 2012 to 2018 should be answering for their stewardship. How come they took final decisions on these matters without recourse to the Minister of Education? I do not know if even the board of the GET Fund was requested to approve these scholarship claims as the law requires of all of us to abide by.
And probably my final two questions will be that what you said brings to bear the administrative lapses which the Auditor General seems to raise in this report that he's put out. So he talks about the fact that the GET Fund itself should not ideally be administering these funds. These funds should go to the Scholarship Secretariat. You were there. Did you know if there existed any sort of relationship or collaboration between the GET Fund and the Scholarship Secretariat to ensure that this is done? There could have been some sort of understanding between these organizations. Was there? Do you know of any?
I do know that there were many instances where the Scholarship Secretariat was allowed room, as the law allows them, to administer scholarships. I recall even new scholarships, for example, the one with Hungary, which I personally negotiated and secured for the Republic of Ghana, where every year 50 tertiary students are flown outside on full scholarship at the expense of the Hungarian government to carry out or pursue all kinds of programs, particularly in the sciences. We ensure that the Scholarship Secretariat manages that Hungarian scholarship scheme, and I'm aware of other ones like the ones we negotiated with China, the ones with Colombia, France, and others. The scholarship secretariat fully handles those ones. In terms of specific collaborations, it is clear from the performance audit that the collaboration that we had thought existed was not as strong as it should have been, and that clearly there have been some oversight, which, as I continue to insist, we must give GetFund the opportunity to be heard in this matter. They will have to explain what reasons there are why they decided to administer this scholarship directly instead of transferring the funds to the scholarship secretariat to administer, because they have the expertise. They have been doing this for decades. They have the panel that interviews that can even, they have the criteria to even determine who is gifted or talented or brilliant but needy. So I mean, these questions will have to be answered. It's just like the the student loan trust. GetFund transfers money to the student loan trust, and the student loan trust secretariat administers the student loans to students. That is the kind of relationship that should exist, that the law requires of those who manage the GetFund secretariat. And so I think that there are legitimate questions that are being raised, and I would like to see what the GetFund administrators and all those who served at the GetFund secretariat will have to say in response to these important audit findings that have come up.
My final question, Mr. Kojo-Tablakwa, will be going forward. What do we do going forward? Now, you've mentioned the issue about the budget overruns. Now, it says the account, I had written it, the amount somewhere here, says that it ran into excess of about 400 million was spent in excess. So if you don't have the money, how do you even spend it? I'm not very educated in that. Maybe you can help us. But also, how then do we address these administrative lapses that this report seems to identify at the GetFund and at the ministerial, at the representative level? I mean, as MPs, what could be done from that level?
As members of parliament, fortunately, if you look at the constitution of Ghana, this audit report will be presented to us formally, and the Public Account Committee will sit on this report. They will invite all of those who have been mentioned to appear before the Public Accounts Committee. Unfortunately, in Ghana, the proceedings of the Public Account Committee are public, and so the days ahead will be interesting from the perspective of Parliament. When the Public Account Committee report is compiled, it will be presented to Parliament, and the plenary will discuss the report. But moving forward, we need major overhauls. First of all, it should not be permissible for public officers, MPs, ministers, and beyond a certain directors in the public service, from director level to chief director, you should not qualify for this government. Government scholarships are not enough. All of those who occupy high public office should be interested in creating more opportunities, rather, for the poor masses of our country, instead of scrambling with them to grab the few opportunities that we have. Two, we must make sure that the law is followed to the letter. The GetFund Act is very clear, and I'm glad that, look, GetFund is a product of the student movement. I used to be NUC's president, and we said that, look, GetFund should supplement education, especially infrastructure. And if we avoid this mission creep, GetFund now is focusing too much on scholarships. That's not what the GetFund was established to do. So let's follow the law. GetFund should stay with its main core mandate. And then if there's a need for scholarships, let us transfer the funds to the scholarship secretariat. and it should be in terms of ratio. I don't think it should even be up to 10% of the total allocation to the GET fund. And then finally, this point must be emphasized, that the GET fund, we must insist that their annual reports to Parliament, their annual reports to the Ministry of Education, and everything they do. You see, in this country, some agencies have assumed a lot of power and authority they don't have. And you see that all over, Cocoa Board, National Health Insurance Authority, so many other places. They should respect the law, be accountable to the Minister of Education, to the board that governs their operations, and to Parliament. I don't recall the last time all these institutions presented their annual reports to Parliament. If they had been doing that, we will have at least detected these anomalies and stopped them. So I say that, look, this report is a total shame. Those who are in public office should stay away, those who are privileged. And there are more. You see even children of ministers. I saw one cabinet minister's daughter receiving $52,000 a year. That if you look at how much that money, it's a 4-year program, multiply it, how many poor children it can serve, especially if they were schooling in Ghana. I'm sure there's a reason why in the law we said that we should prioritize, GET funds should prioritize scholarships in Ghana.
Right.
Because fees in Ghana are way, way lower, more affordable, cheaper than fees outside. And then we must also ask GET fund to prioritize. Look, if you look at some of the courses that all these privileged people have gone outside to do, there are courses that could have been done in Ghana. There's nothing special about those courses. And even our national strategic development, where we want to go to, why can't we ensure that scholarships, and we always told GET fund when we were the ministry that prioritize science and maths and look at programs that are not offered in Ghana or where we have very acute shortage. Look, for example, specialists, neurologists, engineers, areas that we need more people and we need to train human resource in those areas. Those are the things you should prioritize.
If I will come in here,
privileged people outside to go and.
If I could just come in there, because you mentioned the things that you did when you were at that ministry. Let's look quickly at 2012, between 2012 and 2016, which is when you were in power. And I said that was my last question, but let me just quickly throw this back in. How do you explain, because according to the Auditor General's report, the practice, which the Auditor General says is illegal, of taking over, the GET fund taking over the work of the Scholarship Secretariat in terms of disbursing these scholarship amounts, happened with or started in 2012. 2012 and 2016, which are both included in this report, is when you were there as Deputy Minister. How do you explain how this illegality happened under your watch?
As I've told you, the GET fund operated largely independently, and I think that with the benefit of hindsight, we allowed them to arrogate too much power and authority and did not carry out the oversight that we needed to carry out. And remember that a lot of these things, if they don't report, that's why you have the inherent checks and balances. For example, how will I know as Deputy Minister of Education that an MP has received a scholarship? If GET fund does not tell me, if GET fund does not write to the ministry seeking approval, as the law expects them to do, Section 22E, there's no way we would know.
But then you have oversight responsibilities as Deputy Minister or as a ministry.
We are the Ministry of Education. We are not in charge. We are not in charge of the day-to-day administration of GET fund. So we wouldn't know if you don't request approvals, you don't submit your reports to us. We wouldn't know what you are doing. I wouldn't know that NAPO has come to the GET fund office and has asked for scholarship and has been given. I wouldn't know. I don't work at the ministry, at the GET fund secretariat. So it's a legitimate concern. I think that with hindsight, if we knew that this what was going on. With hindsight, we will have been more, will have been more probing, and will have asked the right questions and demanded that we get a full brief of exactly what was transpiring. But these things become clearer always after the fact and after an audit, and that's why we have the Ghana Audit Service, and in our constitution, everybody's stewardship, everybody's tenure will be audited, and then these matters are unearthed. So what matters really now is that going forward, how do we address these infractions, and how do we make sure that they do not recur? I would focus on that.
Mr. Okudzeto Ablakwa, thank you so much for your time and for your patience. Okudzeto Ablakwa is Member of Parliament for North Tongue. There, he's joining us via live, where he's telling us his own view of what has happened. Thank you very much once again. Let's go to the Ghana Audit Service. As I indicated, Abeta O is Principal Auditor. She was supposed to join us earlier, but we lost her briefly. She's back on the line. Hello, Ms. Owo. Thank you so much for your time. I'd just like to find out from you quickly as we start what necessitated this performance audit that your office did.
Numerous calls of students facing hardships in foreign countries while studying, and it was after we found that the Scholarship Secretariat, initially being the institution that was supposed to administer scholarships in Ghana, that role had been taken over by GETFund, and during GETFund's administration, students were in need and had to face various hardships in foreign countries. So that was what necessitated the audit.
So if for someone who has not really followed the discussion and they just had an idea, would you please tell us what the real lapses you found are? These administrative lapses that seem to be standing out really tall in your report. Rob, if you will summarize it for us, please. Okay, so the purpose of the audit was to find out whether GETFund acted in accordance with its mandate, as stated in the GETFund Act, in administering the scholarship. So as the GETFund Act by Section 22B said, GETFund was supposed to provide funding to Scholarship Secretariat to fund scholarships. But since GETFund took over, we were expecting that they would put in the policies, procedures, and administration principles to ensure that they administered the scholarships with due regard to efficiency and then effectiveness. So what we found was that the GETFund first did not use the fund in accordance with the object of the Act. So instead of funding students who were schooling in Ghana, majority of the funds went into foreign scholarships. And also, the administration didn't have sound principles. When we say sound principles, what we found was that we're expecting that as a scholarship granting institution, they would have the eligibility criteria that shows that how does somebody qualify to get a scholarship, whether they would have a scholarship administration process. That is, when we're going to publicize the scholarship, there's going to be an opening season and then a deadline for presentation of scholarships. There's going to be a selection criteria and then also an approval process. So we found that GETFund didn't have all these in place to grant the scholarships. And also, GETFund exceeded the allocation for scholarships, meaning that they had yearly budget that was approved by Parliament. But over the period, that was 2012 to 2018, what we found was that GETFund exceeded its budget by about 150%. And then as a result of the number of scholarships granted, which was over the funds they had, students were caught in hardship. People had to be evicted from their accommodation. Schools were rejecting students from writing exams, all because they didn't have funds to pay their fees. Okay. And also, the selection process was porous, which meant that there was supposed GETFund claimed they inherited documentation for Scholarship Secretariat, which showed them how to administer the scholarship. But what we found was that they didn't follow through the documents inherited.
So the students were not, the beneficiaries were not providing all the supporting documents to be granted scholarships. So people were applying without their certificate. People were applying without the transcripts and all that. And also the administering of scholarships benefited people who were not qualified. So the needy but brilliant students that was certified in the Get Fund Act were rather not getting the scholarship. So generally that is what the report was about.
Because we've run out of time, but let's quickly touch on the actions that the audit service has taken in relation to the infractions that you have found so far. But because you mentioned the Get Fund, the administration of the Get Fund, the scholarship that should be within Ghana. This Get Fund has a statement. Quickly, I'll just read to you. Actually, it says that we wish to categorically state that the award of scholarship by Get Fund under the Get Fund Act 2000 Act 581 is not limited to needy but brilliant students. The fund, per its mandate, also provides support for such other educational activities and programs to serve strategic national interests. Does that not suffice for the actions that the administration took?
There's something missing there. It was on approval of the board. So we went through the board minutes and we didn't see any approval for Get Fund to use the section, the 22E.
Okay. Let's then finish up with the actions. What is going to happen next? What are the next steps that the Ghana Audit Service is taking on this matter?
The next step is the report has been presented to the Speaker of Parliament. The Public Account Committee is going to sit on the report, and then there's going to be the public hearing on the report.
Okay. And quickly, does the part of the mandate of the Ghana Audit Service include preventive education of sorts to some of these institutions? Perhaps that could have prevented this from happening in the first place. Does that exist?
Yes, we make recommendations after our audit, and we have recommendations in this report, which Get Fund is supposed to implement. And then after a time, we'll go back to do a follow-up audit, and we'll see how Get Fund has implemented these recommendations and how it has changed the system.
Thank you very much for your time, ma'am. Alberta Owo is Principal Auditor with the Ghana Audit Service. Well, following this expose, many of those listed have been reacting. We can start with Mr. Opoku Prempeh, who has been explaining how he became a beneficiary. He spoke on Adom TV.
I'm free in Fisia, in Pimienu, and you don't swap. Nanado Danko Kufado Yebe Minister. Holiday club in Tivinia and Outrim Unun Twaso, and quite acquire a master's degree or a PhD or a BBSAO. Now, I said no, Lucrebian. Me better buy a name of another name of Ministry of Education. Men call BRB, Mia, Kwame Heswo, Get Fund, Uncle G. Sikase, with the call school Akusiadi, and Yanucre, Mako school a year. Me, ya, Benjuma, men coaches, a DBM free Get Fund in mind. Nanducre will be said, if you pay me new edit to Nigeria, Bemu, a war parliament. Parliament. In your invitation free Harvard, see Monsieur Adi, now Chimiansa, permission of Parliament, Get Fund the sponsor in Yemenqua. Now, said the Mecano, Usha Dia, Usha numbers, you create their bear, ye be a free near Truby, you see us and no son what Yadepa, and yet to create 2014 accept I own character in our home. Now, one was say, maybe accept the fiddle, the bar in never seen could actually. A free 2017, Minkoji Get Fund Sika, I'm the Minister of Education, Diako Babia, Ebume so 2014, we all Mashabijum, Harvard, Tunis, Afre, same Impis Academics, and then our Chimiansa, and my Get Fund sponsor. And Yemen Quantum Koye, na Sabi, when you uncanny Muntin Kanye, Bubu, BD, and Kahon. The B Nisika free Get Fund, the BG Free National Health Insurance Fund, the BNA Kuchini, Union Scandal Coy, a Japan Quantum Coy, and a Japan Quantum Makubida, MP4 Bibrico, Oboka, Obo Sisika, baby, Ofuso Benjamin, Numdiako. So they make an if we try to track a crack and just a crack and first cash so will be now trust at 12,000. Now what you mean, say be a basis and a sign a buying. Get found who took on our rate or demand. She saying you must now buy bit be amount now what you mean, 12,000. A woman could school cry be a 12,000. And then me, what about me 12,000? And you know,
Voice of the Minister for Education. Well, Kennedy Osenyako was also included in the list as having studied at the SOAS University of London. He denies the claim.
Indeed, it's an official, authentic document coming from the Auditor General. And it will be unfortunate because there's no figure attached to my name. And why did the Auditor General put my name there? The Auditor General could have even gone further to investigate it and find out why my name was there. I have not been on any government scholarship, whether home or abroad.
But have you at any point in time even requested and you were denied?
Most of my constituents comes to get the state fund scholarship for them. So what I do is I mostly use my letterhead to write and attach their request or their school or whatever, whether admission letter or whatever it is on my letterhead on their behalf and send it to the administrator to see if they can help them. That is the closest that I've gotten to by writing for my constituents in front of my name. Then I am tempted to believe that it is maybe because of some of those letters that I've written on behalf of my constituents for such a scholarship support to go and pursue their education, some outside and some locally. Maybe that is why they might have written my.
We want you to arrive alive. Now, the wife of one of the 3 Kolebu Teaching Hospital urologists who died in a 2005 accident says she is forced to relive the trauma of losing her husband anytime she hears news of a road crash. Speaking to JoyNews in our series of accidents that shook the nation as part of our Arrive Alive campaign to stop the deaths on Ghana's roads, Dr. Cecilia Bensi questioned why some drivers who cause avoidable crashes are left off the hook. There is more in this report by Maxwell Agbagba.
But I try that at each anniversary, if only I have to write I have to send something in papers in remembrance of my husband.
Wife of one of the doctors, Dr. Cecilia Benchi, shows me articles she authored about the ghastly accident that claimed her husband's life. In August 2005, Dr. Isaac Benchi was returning from a monthly outreach program in the Bronx-Ahafo region, but he never reached home. He died with his senior, Professor John Quarty, and 34-year-old Dr. Benjamin Osewiafe. Dr. Cecilia Benchi has been narrating to me how she had news of the death of her husband.
So the car came to pick him, and something funny happened. After I had gone in and was closing the gate because of the dogs, I didn't want the dogs to come out. Then he came back, knocked, and then said Mokomaba again, but he had already said he was going, so I also answered and he went.
She says it has been difficult to cope years after the death of her husband.
Yeah. Of course, what I planned to do, most of the things I planned to do, I couldn't do because I don't have any other support. Okay.
Dr. Cecilia Benchi says her heart bleeds anytime she hears news of an accident. She wonders why some drivers who are to blame for the crashes which are preventable are not prosecuted.
And then to the drivers, my heart bleeds all the time. Each time you hear a crash, my heart bleeds. And I think it's the same for many, many others who have lost loved ones. The carnage on our roads, they are man-made, I would call disaster. Okay. We have to, they are preventable. People are in prison for little things. Okay. But people are killing others on the road. I am wondering what happens to them. the drivers and so on who do that. I'm begging, because it's hurting so many people.
I am now at the residence of Ian Korty.
His father, Professor John Korty, died in the same accident on the Bonsu-Apija section of the Accra-Kumasi highway. He narrates to me what led to the accident. He says it is a shame majority of Ghana's major highways are not divided or dual carriageways.
So I think I got the report more from a statement that the driver had given. And he said that they were traveling back to Accra, and he saw an oncoming car which was trying to overtake the traffic on the other side of the road. I think he decided, in his estimation, that the car would not get back onto their side of the road before it got to them. So he pulled over to the side of the road and parked. And then the oncoming car's tire burst, and the car somersaulted and came and landed on their vehicle. I think that it's a shame that almost 15 years after my father died, we don't have a divided highway running from south to north and from east to west in this country. 15 years later, you cannot drive from Accra to Kumasi on a divided highway. Every time you hear about head-on collisions, you know that it is as a result of us not having divided highways.
For like how long? About over 20 years now. Over 20 years. Over 20 years.
Dr. Bernard Morton has been a urologist at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital for more than 20 years. He was a close friend of 34-year-old deceased urologist Dr. Benjamin Osewiafe, and he tells me, but for his heavy work schedule, he would have been a statistic.
There was some sort of reluctance to go at the time. I don't know, that sort of premonition people may have about something. Not that something will happen, but he was quite reluctant. And even he nearly exchanged positions with me if I was willing to go. By that time, too, I also had something to do, so he had to make the trip. So I remember that dawn he called me that it was time. But normally they were going to Sunyani, I think, that time. So around 4:35, the vehicle has come to pick.
Maxwell Agbaba further reports the hashtag is Arrive Alive. Now, the controversy surrounding Ghana's decision to buy a property to serve as Chancery Building and residence for the Ghana Embassy in Oslo, Norway, seems to have been put to rest. About an hour ago, or a couple of hours ago, the Foreign Affairs Minister commissioned a rented property to serve as embassy in Oslo. The minority in 2018 claimed government had planned to spend a whopping $12 million to buy a building in Norway, originally priced at $3.5 million. Government denied that allegation, insisting it had reversed earlier decision to buy it. Presidential correspondent Elton Brobe reports that the country has now purchased a property to serve as residence for the ambassador. The Foreign Affairs Minister has been speaking to him.
The controversy surrounding Ghana's decision to buy a consular building as well as a chancery to serve as embassy and ambassador residence for the Ghana embassy here in Norway has been put to rest. Now the building is what Ghana has rented a free floor to serve as Ghana's embassy to serve the people of Norway, as well as office space for the ambassador. However, Ghana decided to rather buy a property to serve as residence for the ambassador. The Foreign Affairs Minister, who a few hours ago commissioned the building to serve as Ghana's embassy, has been explaining the reason behind Ghana's decision not to purchase the property, which was a major controversial issue in Parliament, but rather opted to rather rent this property to serve as Ghana's, embassy to serve Norway.
This is not the property that Ghana wanted to buy. Indeed, as the process is always the case when you want to open an embassy, you send officials there to look at finding suitable property for the chancery as well as the residents. In this case, our officers came, the head of the estate department, what we call the bureau, came to look around. They identified a property for the chancery. So they started talking to the owner of the property, came back to Capital to inform us that they had identified the property. Indeed, this whole controversy is something that I can never understand, because we had not even gone through the process of the first step.
Shalia Ikobochi there. She is a Foreign Affairs Minister, ending that report brought to us from Norway by Elton Robia, Presidential Affairs Correspondent.